This video was brought to you by Canadians United Against Modern Exclusion. To learn more, go to CUAME.ca. In chemistry, litmus testing is a way to quickly and effectively determine the acidity of a solution. But the concept of litmus testing is also prevalent in the social world. For example, among voters, who engage in litmus testing when they decide who to elect on the basis of certain issues. It can be a useful heuristic that makes it easier to participate in politics, but it becomes harmful when disagreement on an issue is treated as proof of national disloyalty, or whether someone is a good or bad Canadian. In debates over foreign interference, especially regarding China, litmus testing has intensified. Individuals who refuse to adopt approved positions are increasingly portrayed as untrustworthy or foreign influenced, often regardless of any evidence. This dynamic was evident in the House of Commons Special Committee on Canada-China Relations, where witnesses such as UBC professor Yves Tiberghien and former ambassador to China, Dominic Barton, were questioned less about their expertise than about whether they were too pro-China. Tiberghien was scrutinized for his alleged involvement in the university's financial ties to China and Chinese companies, facing questions such as, "Do you think it's a problem for you to be responsible for working with the university, advising them on their financial interests vis-a-vis China, while also offering expertise to the public on Canada-China relations?" Meanwhile, Barton was questioned for being insufficiently critical towards China, for praising aspects of China's COVID-19 response, and for acknowledging that China is a distinct society with its own history and values. However, his later testimony became noticeably sharper, perhaps suggesting pressure to pass a loyalty test. In short, those who failed to criticize China at every opportunity were implicitly treated as suspect, prompting comparisons to McCarthyism and accusations that the committee had become a committee for un-Canadian activities. In a previous case study, Canadians United Against Modern Exclusion outlined how the online publication Dotting the Map contributes to a culture of exclusion that compromises the ability for Canadians, specifically those of Chinese descent, to participate freely in politics. Dotting the Map promotes candidate screening through rigid questions on China policy and frames any deviation from categorical opposition as potential foreign influence. They interrogate candidates with questions such as, "Do you agree that the Beijing regime's bullying and thuggish behavior is unacceptable? That it is eroding the rule of law-based international order, therefore Canada should halt and rethink our engagement policy with China? Do you agree to withdraw our membership in the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, which is led by the PRC?" These questions reduce complex foreign policy debates to binary judgments. While individuals are entitled to hold strong views on these issues, treating any deviation from categorical opposition as evidence of foreign influence excludes Canadians on the basis of their opinion rather than conduct. This same logic surfaced during the public inquiry into foreign interference as well. Former MP Han Dong was called to testify amid allegations that the Chinese government had interfered in his 2019 nomination and that he had encouraged the continued detention of Canadians Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor in China. Instead of focusing on the evidence behind the allegations hurled towards him, questioning often veered into litmus testing. Dong was repeatedly asked to affirm, as fact, that the People's Republic of China interferes in Canadian democracy, despite the inquiry's mandate being to determine whether such interference even occurred in the first place. For instance, at one point he was asked directly, "Sir, do you accept that the People's Republic of China is attempting to interfere in Canadian democracy?" His voting record, including abstaining from votes condemning China's treatment of Uyghurs, was used to imply insufficient opposition and by extension disloyalty, shifting the inquiry away from evidence and towards judging his personal views. Consequently, Dong sued Chorus Entertainment, owner of Global News, for publishing the false allegations about his involvement in foreign interference. The lawsuit was settled out of court in June 2025 with an admission by Global News that the inquiry's findings and key allegations against Dong were not substantiated. But the damage had already been done, as Dong left the Liberal caucus and resigned from his post, demonstrating how litmus testing can produce real and irreversible political exclusion. These three examples of litmus testing show that exclusion is not a peripheral issue. It is embedded in our central political institutions and shapes thinking even at the highest levels of government. Litmus tests are not inherently illegitimate. Voters are entitled to judge candidates based on issues they care deeply about, and MPs' voting records are rightly public. The danger, however, arises when disagreement is treated as proof of foreign interference, collapsing the distinction between opinion and evidence. By claiming that an MP is acting in association with or is influenced by a foreign government on the basis of their voting record is to take litmus testing to a dangerous extreme. But litmus testing also contributes to political exclusion in a more nuanced way that impacts all Canadians, particularly those of Chinese descent, who may fear being labeled proxies or suspected of disloyalty. It also narrows the scope of acceptable debate on Canada-China relations by framing China solely as an adversary and treating any form of engagement as inherently suspect. These constraints are particularly noticeable in light of ongoing US economic coercion against Canada, when maintaining flexibility and autonomy in foreign policy has become more important than ever. Democracy depends on open, evidence-based engagement, and rejecting political litmus tests is therefore essential not only to inclusion, but to the development of informed, effective policy that genuinely serves Canada's long-term interests.